Hey all, Brent here. Welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thanks for joining me. I'm here today with a review of Mechademia Volume 2, which I'm not going to show you in too much detail because there's a naked woman on the cover. Yeah, some of you are going to run off and buy it right now, aren't you? That's fine. But this is the second in a series of scholarly essays collected into a book all about anime and manga. The first volume I reviewed a while back. This is titled Networks of Desire because it's about sexuality as well as romance and just relationships between people. It's not all hentai stuff in here. In fact, there's very little about that kind of stuff in here. It's more about like romance. There's, for example, a very good essay on the evolution of shoujo manga and the emergence of yaoi out of shoujo, and all of that like from a Japanese perspective. Like it actually quotes arguments between various yaoi authors as to what they think yaoi is and what role it has in society and why people like it and stuff like that. So it's very interesting, and there's quite a few interesting articles in here. There's one on the Rose of Versailles, which is of course a very major thing. There's a whole article on the fan fiction community online using Ranma 1/2 as sort of a baseline of different kinds of fanfic and different kinds of authors and what different people are looking for, and different sort of rankings of authors and what's considered acceptable and what's not, and all that kind of stuff. Now, this was published a couple of years ago, so it's a little out of date in that, but it's still, if you're not familiar with fanfic, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Like with Mechademia 1, some of these articles I just kind of skim over because I just don't agree with them at all. Some of them just make no sense. It's like I don't know what you're getting at there, and that's not there. I'm sorry. But I would say most of them certainly have at least something that I'm glad I read. That at least made me think. At least gave me a different perspective on a show or a style of anime or manga or whatever. Same thing with that one, where it's like, wow, that can give you a good feel for things. There is an article here on The Last Vampire, one on Evangelion. There's one on Hibane Renmei. Sweet. And like really getting into the various elements of Hibane, and it's so mysterious and how it's structured and stuff like that. And so it's not just here's what happens, it's why does it work? What was going on there? And using a lot of interviews with Yoshitoshi Abe and such to talk about what that means in terms of what he was trying to do or not trying to do, which is just very interesting. What else is there? Oh, there's an article on Porco Rosso, Hayao Miyazaki's film, and the sexual tension, I guess would be the best term there, sort of the romance and between the different characters and such. And obviously it's not like there's any serious sexual stuff going on in that movie, but just the various romantic elements and Porco's old loves and Fio, the idea of the 17-year-old girl going off kind of alone with this single guy, really, that's, you're okay with that? And, just all these little elements in the anime. And what's great is having an article that really does get into each of those elements and just sort of pulls all of them out and sort of puts them out in a row and talks about them. And, helps us to think about those elements of the movie. There's a great article on Futari Ecchi, which if you're not familiar with is this quasi hentai, but it's more of a sort of sex manual as a manga. Two newlyweds who are very nervous about sex. They're both virgins, and they're starting to sort of become comfortable with themselves and with the act of sex and all those elements, and just sort of their journey in that, and how it's actually very non-puerile. It's very serious, and there's actually a lot of sort of instructional stuff about what it's like and such. And it's just very grown up, and it's very, very simple and mature, and there's nothing pornographic in it, ironically enough, despite being pretty sexually explicit. So there's lots of stuff about that. Now, I will point out there is essentially nothing in here that would worry anyone. There's a little bit of nudity in the sense of like glowy anime nudity of someone on their side or stuff like that, and the cover is got something a little off color, but that's fine. Just one of those things you have to explain to people. And there's actually a really good article I wanted to mention, a little column, if you will, by Trina Robbins. She worked at Viz as an English language adapter for manga. So the manga would come over with the literal translation, and she'd take it and adapt it into English and get the proper normal English speech patterns out of it. You know, someone might bump into somebody else, and the literal translation is "I apologize." Well, almost nobody uses the word "I apologize" when bumping into somebody on the street. It's "I'm sorry," or "Oops, sorry about that," or "Excuse me," or "Pardon me," or whatever. So she's the one who works out what that would actually be like in real life, and what that's like, and the issues she has in translating things like poetry. So very, very interesting. Lots of interesting stuff in here, as with volume 1 and the other volumes as well. So definitely pick this up if you can. Obviously, if your parents are going to freak out at something like this, I mean, there is a naked woman who's bound with rope on the front. You might want to think about that. But there's essentially nothing puerile in here. This is a serious study or series of articles studying romance and sexuality in anime. Oh, I also wanted to mention, I reviewed Malice at Doll here a while back. This is why. There's actually an article in here on Malice at Doll going into great detail about different elements in that and what is coming across with it, and maybe why Kanaka wrote those various elements in, and presenting it as this sort of real treatise on that anime, and treating it as something worth thinking about. And that's the great thing about Mechademia. It gives you stuff to think about, and quite a lot of things to think about. And sometimes I strongly disagree, but it's good to have things that do that to you.